Hey, this is Zach.
And I'm Clint, and we wanted to thank Exoterra for sponsoring this episode of Colubrid and Colubroid Radio.
Exoterra is the industry leader in glass terrarium enclosures, and we are a big fan of getting to see the species we work with both at home and at the university.
We utilize Exoterra caging here at Metazotics, and in addition to top quality terrariums, Exoterra offers an array of heating options, lighting, supplements, decor, and truthfully anything needed or wanted when keeping reptiles.
Thank you, Exoterra, for supporting Colubrid and Colubroid Radio. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Colubrid and Colubroid Radio. Zach here, as always, and with me, my esteemed co-host, Clint Bartley. How you doing, dude?
I'm good, my man. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm actually not completely wiped out by my day at the school. That's not normal.
Things are looking up, right?
Things are looking up, yeah. I had a full day of meetings, but it was with students, and those are the only meetings that I like having. So, talked a lot about science, a lot of thesis projects, got some people moving in the right direction. So I'm pretty good. How was your day?
It was a slower day in terms of traffic in the shop, which, I'm not surprised because this close to the anniversary event, that'll kind of happen. But at the same time, it was, there's so much to do right now that I feel like I'm dragging because I've just so many different directions that it's okay. What do I need to do first? I've got that half done. Should I move to something else? But it's all going well, and we're getting things accomplished. But as of today, it's one of those where I'm catching myself sleeping a little longer here lately. Obviously, I'm wearing myself out, but it's good. It's for good reason. So,
all righty, very good. So, for those listening, I have a week in the field next week. So, whenever that happens, we have to record 1 week after we record previously. So I don't know how many new updates we'll have between our various places. The only real update that I have is the final clutch of my personal kings is hatching as we speak. They pipped, and it was a really interesting clutch. I picked up this, of course, it's a Florida King, and it was a Pinellas County. Yeah, shocking. But it was a really neat one because Pinellas County Kings, if you're into locality Floridana, there's a phenotype of them that is very high yellow. And I never thought I would get my hands on one, and I was able to. And I had a wide-banded Pinellas, and I had this high yellow female, and I've had her for a while. And so it was one of those, I'm in the snake room, mad scientist vibes start taking over. And I threw the male in with the female, and he immediately locked up with her. And then, one mating, maybe like an hour, but I got a clutch, and those eggs are hatching. So I looked at the young, the two that were out, and was like, good goddamn, that is a nice looking king snake. So there's a wide-banded Pinellas phenotype. That's basically if you took an Eastern King and a typical Florida King, put them together, instead of having those crisp white bands, you get this high yellow banding on the wide banded Pinellas. And I bred those, got a clutch of those this year. It was my most anticipated clutch. It was the one that I was most excited about. I got 13 eggs and put them in the incubator. But this was one of the clutches that was being overlooked by students because I donated the eggs to a project. And I was talking to Derek, and he informed me last week that, it was when I was in Arizona. Only 2 of those eggs made it. I was like, are you kidding me? That was like my gut punch for the season. So it's really interesting because these guys look just like that. So I don't know if any of these are leaving. I really needed 9 more king snakes, but they're so unique that it was, I had that like kid in the candy store moment when you look in the egg box and you're like, holy hell, so it was nice to get that vibe back. And then I think I picked up a female lemon ghost hog as part of our future hog efforts. So anyway, to go with the male lemon ghost hog, because I really like that morph. But that's literally it for me. This year is going a little better. I guess there's one more thing. If you listen to the show last year, both Clint and I did hand-to-hand combat with baby king snakes for about 4 months. And I have every intention of getting some lizards on a future trip to live in the house for scenting. It's one of the things we learned from our good friend Chad Gordon. But this year, the feeding trials are going much better than they were last year. So I threw my 4 pinks in. That's my standard number with a bin full of babies because I throw the whole clutch together, even with the king snakes. And I was amazed at the number of pinkies that were eaten the first round. So I was like, okay, really want this trend to stay. So, but yeah, that's it for me. What's up with you?
Well, actually, have had some things happen in the past week. And we've got more black milks hatching. So that's always exciting to see.
Yeah.
Had some chaos gray bands, which are a neat kind of, mutation. And those are just great. I'm probably going to hold that entire clutch back because I want to be able to have more of a colony built with those. And I also had some, I picked up a pair of Culberson County Alterna. Had those just arrived today from one of our listeners. So thank you, Chris. And something I didn't expect. I thought we completely missed this year until Steve is making his rounds through the collection and pulls open one of our albino boa cages, Colombian boas. And we've got the gooey mess that is a boa birth, and exciting. I mean, it's against my better judgment, because I know that albino to albino and Colombian boas can be a problem. We did put her to a sunglow male, and so we've got a bunch of sunglows, a bunch of albinos. I want to say there was like 21 if Drew.
Holy
now that's more fingers and toes than Drew has, and that's the number he gave me. So I'm going to go with it, Drew. We've got 21, and they all look healthy, happy, and doing great. So that's fun. Had some more boas on the ground out there. But yeah, man, things they're cranking out with all the feedings, and every week I've got dozens more pictures to take and animals to post up. So going well, having fun. One other update I want to give our listeners to the last episode, and especially any that did watch the video.
Yes.
So as everyone may recall, we were talking, and I'm saying it's looking pretty bad outside, and we're hearing a big boom, next to me, things like that. Zach's like, "Are you okay over there?" So there was a tornado that touched down less than a mile from the building during the podcast. So whenever it went black and I had lost power and was absent for a while, that's what was going on. But I'll say that we were very lucky here. We had no damage. We were only without power for that little bit of time that I was off of the podcast, like 15 minutes maybe. But there were people around that were without power for days. I mean, nearly a week. So we were very lucky. We were able to help some people out by boarding some animals because, not only was the power out, but we were 95, 98 degrees, out here at that time. So we were either boarding animals or supplying ice packs for a lot of people. But
that's awesome.
But we're good. All was fine. But a very interesting night, to say the least. So
and it was the first time we decided to do this video thing.
I'm getting messages from home. Are you seriously still podcasting? Why are you not seeing? I'm like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? I'm in the safest building, our safest room in the building. So
I don't know if it's funny or not. It's funny if you like dark humor, but I believe I said something to the effect of when you left, and it was just Sarah and I said something like, "Oh, Clint's gone. Hopefully not forever." And then there's a freaking tornado that hits a mile from your shop. So I got to work on my etiquette there.
I clicked my heels 3 times, man. I was fine.
Yeah. So anyway. Okay. Well, there's one other thing. We didn't talk about it last week. in the last episode, sorry, because we were just neurotic. There were tornadoes. There was video.
Mm-hmm.
Might as well be the same thing as far as I'm concerned with the first time we did this. But I don't know if it was the episode before that. It may have been. But we recently did an episode with Exoterra, and it was a lighting episode. And in that episode, I made a mistake. And this happens as a teacher. It's not the best thing that I do. But when your brain's going a million miles a minute, you have a tendency to screw up and say something similar but not correct. And in the last episode, there's UVA radiation, and then there's IRA, infrared A. And I went on this big old tirade about UVA this, UVA that, UVA this. And in my brain, I heard IRA, but out of my mouth came UVA. And it caused a little bit of a stir, especially in some of the lighting groups, especially on some Discord servers. And we obviously don't want to put out information that isn't correct, because that is not how we roll here. So first and foremost, sorry about that. And we are going to make it right. So to that effect, sometime in October, I reached out to actually one of the individuals that put up a post saying they didn't quite get this right. And we're going to bring that individual on and have a dedicated light episode where we're going to dive into way more of the science with this individual. So we're saying this now. I'm looking at the calendar here. So this is going to drop probably around the 12th of August. October, it's after Colubrid Fest. It's multiple months away. What would be awesome is if you're listening to this and you've always wondered about lighting when it comes to colubrids, send us a question, because we have plenty of time to kind of curate this episode into what the listeners want. But this will be way, way more nerdy, sciencey than the previous one, which was pretty damn nerdy and sciencey, because that's what we do around here. But just so y'all know, had an off night, wasn't my best night. But one of the things we preach here is, like, if you make a mistake, don't dig your heels in. I'm not digging my heels in. So our response to this is we're going to bring on somebody that knows more than we do and do it again. So that's pretty much where we're standing on that. So,
well, I think it was stated even in that particular episode that could have been a 4-hour episode easily.
Yeah.
It's going to kind of be,
So yep. So that's the update on the lighting. And one of our listeners brought that to my attention, and I greatly appreciate that was brought to our attention. Anytime you hear something that we might misspoke, or you might think that may not quite be right, you are always allowed to reach out to us, because we're in the business of educating. So by all means, do it. So with that being said, anything else before we move on to our various updates?
No, I'm excited for this update. Very excited.
We've kept this secret. We have 2 guests tonight. So our episode guest is going to be Jason Nelson. So if you're a bull snake keeper, gopher snake keeper, you definitely know Jason. And we'll get into this with Jason here in a minute. But one of my favorite things is I messaged Jason, so what all do you keep? And the list just kind of kept going. So this episode is about Pituophis with Jason. But I am certain we'll be having Jason on to talk about some of the other animals. But before we bring on Jason, with the science update, I was alone in the wilderness, wandering around without a sponsor. We didn't have a sponsor. Clint had a sponsor for the market update. I didn't have a sponsor. And we literally thought, who the hell is going to sponsor the science update? And then when we, put our heads
it had
together,
to make sense.
It had to make sense. We're not going to have some breeder that's not science-based sponsor the science update, Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to turn it over to Clint at this point to introduce our new science update sponsor, and I'm going to bring him on right now. So we have with us Dr. Ben Morell, and so go for it, Clint.
Absolutely. Hi, Ben.
Yeah, hey.
Glad to be here. Hey, glad to have you.
Get Zach out of the wilderness.
That's right.
Yes, I have a friend now.
So I want to tell everyone how this came to be, because this really is something exciting for me. So Um, Obviously, as Zach was mentioning, we knew we had a spot for the science update, sponsor. But when I said it had to make sense, it not only had to be a company that was science based in the science realm, but obviously still that was only one box that it checked off. We still wanted to have a partner that had the same kind of ethics that we did, the same values that we do, as well as they had to be making a difference in the industry for, with a science side. And RGI completely fit that mold, 100%. Now, for those listening, they may be wondering, yeah, but RGI and colubrids, where does that kind of fall into place? Now, I am friends with Kayla, who handles a lot of the social media for RGI, Rare Genetics Inc. And I saw either from her or something she had posted, or I heard that RGI was going to be making, I don't want to call it a shift, but let's call it an expansion. We're going to be expanding to some new horizons. Now, for those who are listening that don't know who Rare Genetics Inc. are and what they do, Ben, do you want to kind of give a little bit of history and background into what RGI has done so far, and at this point, really the ball python market? I'll turn it over to you.
Well, actually, ironically, the first test we had available was a colubrid sex determination test.
I love it. And we're going to talk more about that in a second.
We will. So yeah, for many years back when there wasn't like Facebook and Instagram, stuff like that, this is like the early 2000s, mid 2000s. I was chatting on MoreliaPythons.com. It was a chat board, I guess, and met Sean Christian. And so we talked about carpet pythons, along with other people quite a bit. 2011, I went to the October Tinley and got to meet Sean in person for the first time. And he's a serial entrepreneur, and I had just finished earning my PhD. And he just brought up, we were at, tables right next to each other. And he's like, hey, how come, because he does bird stuff, he's like, how come I can pull a feather and send it to a company and they can tell me if I have a male or a female, but we can't do that with snakes? I was like, well, we just got to put in the time and the money and figure it out. And he's like, well, why don't we do that? So I moved across the country. I was in Utah then, moved across the country to Virginia and started a new job and had kids, all that stuff. So it took a little time, but in 2017, that's when we started running the colubrid sex determination test. And what we really, being Morelia people, we really wanted to get a green tree python sex determination test. And we've found out just this last year that their sex chromosomes are, unlike the other python species, that genus Morelia, their sex chromosomes are complicated. So that's at least a good reason why I failed at that.
It was hard.
Yeah, it's been very difficult. And now we know why, at least part of it. But anyway, so we really started with sex determination. The cost for doing any type of test development for mutations or morphs was just, too expensive, too complicated. And at that time, but just a couple of years ago, we had some things come through. Some people in academics started to work with ball python mutations and published. The piebald was the first one. Piebald mutation, a group in Canada found out what that specific mutation was that caused piebald in ball pythons. And so we started working on it about 2 years ago. And we're able now to develop morph tests in ball pythons. And we've developed a lot of tools to be able to do that. And it's been nice. Of course, I've always kept both ball pythons and not ball pythons. So I've done both, but I know some people, don't like the pet rocks, or they only like the pet rocks. But anyway, it's been good because it's helped fund the development of tools for us to be able to develop tests. And so now we're getting to a point where we have quite a few ball python mutations, but we would like to, like I said, we've got a sex determination test in colubrids, but we'd like to move into hognoses and corns and kings and, pick up some of those albino and all of those and some axanthics, so like some of the things we already kind of know what genes to look in. And so we're very excited. We're just about on the edge of being able to do that. So this is perfect time.
Yeah, and that is so exciting, and that's really what made all of us involved in this just really stoked to create this partnership because I've seen, for those who aren't in the ball python world or community at all, I've seen what RGI has done to that entire realm. I mean, it's revolutionized it because there's so many possible hits. There's this, that, and now with just sending in a shed, exactly what you've got, whether it's visual, because you start getting 5-6 gene combos and you don't know what the hell you're looking at. What's visual, what's het, what's carrying. And in addition to that, there's genes that you've been able to prove are the same thing. There are 3 different lines of this or that, and you've narrowed it down. So you've really cleaned up that industry in a lot of ways because of these tests. And to know now that attention is going to start moving into the colubrid realm, I'm excited. I mean, hey guys, black rat snake guy here. I mean, good Lord, what the hell are we looking at in all these? And I mean, that's just going to be groundbreaking whenever you hit that hog nose. Gosh, I mean, there's so many different mutations out there that, obvious. When we were talking, we said, yeah, hognose are going to be the first ones you'll want to tackle because there's so much to it. But that's exciting. And we are super excited to be able to be a part of helping catapult this out to the colubrid community and let them know what's coming, and for everyone listening, you're going to get to be a part of it. That's what's exciting about that.
That's what's really cool.
Yes. And so, because there's the only way that these tests can be developed is with large sample sizes, to go. So Ben, tell the listeners what you need.
Yeah. So we literally, you cannot understate what Clint just said. We literally cannot do this unless we have your help. So for mutations, like for a morph mutation for albino or tessera or Arctic, any of these mutations you have in your colubrids that you're excited about, we really need it. What's best is to have 40 or 50 that are homozygous for that mutation. Now obviously some mutations are lethal if you have them in the homozygous form, but I'm just saying, ideally we would get 40 to 50 that are homozygous for that mutation, and then we will take that group of 40 and do a whole genome sequencing on those. And then we'll have a pool of ones that we know don't have that mutation, and we'll sequence all those. And then we use bioinformatics, the software that will go through and look for any base changes in let's say we're doing Arctic hognoses. It'll look for any changes in Arctics that are not anywhere in the non-Arctics. And that's essentially what we're doing. But we do have to have, at least in the dozens. The more we can get, the better. And if some of them are hets, that's fine too. That does help. But the homozygous ones are even better. If we're working with hets, then we need, a higher number to be able to get there. And the higher we have, the more likely we'll be successful.
Gotcha. So what sheds would you like listeners to begin collecting and sending now? I know that we're not at the testing phase yet. You're getting close, but obviously if we can start stockpiling them for you, what can we do?
Yes. Well, first of all, do you have any hognose or corn snake listeners? We've had a lot of hogs and corns come in, and we're very thankful for that. But yeah, I mean, really right now, I would say anything where the genetics, you're pretty comfortable that you're confident and knowing what it is. So when you're developing a test, we have to have something that we know has the genetic information we need and has that specific mutation we're looking for. And we have to know for sure that it's there so that we can compare it to ones we know it isn't there. And if some of them aren't right, then that will make it take longer, and there'll be more things we'll have to chase. So really, if you feel confident with the genetics, and even if some of them are pos hets or possible this or that, you could say, hey, in the pairing was this, I don't know for sure. That's fine, as long as you understand and know that information. So really, on each bag, I guess that's another good thing to know for anyone that hasn't collected a shed. So for me, when I'm collecting sheds, I just go in every morning and every night. So about every 12 hours, I go in and check on any of them that I know are in shed that I want to shed from. You pull that shed out of the cage as soon as you can. So the number one enemy to the good DNA that's in that shed is moisture, wet, humidity. That water breaks down the DNA and makes it so we can't amplify it or look at it at all. So so you get that shed out of the cage as fast as you can. And we really only need a piece about the size of a quarter. So if you've got an adult, false water cobra, we don't need the whole thing.
Yeah, that's a lot of DNA.
Yes, that would be a lot. So from a quarter size piece, we can usually do 30 or 40 tests if we needed to keep going back. So for a lot of species, I'll literally go with tweezers and I just take one scale and that's what goes into my sample. So what you want to do is I pull the shed out, and whatever piece is the flattest, driest, cleanest, I just tear out a little piece about the size of a quarter to a silver dollar at the very most. But a quarter is good. It just seems like everybody wants to make sure they give us enough. I would just tell you, we don't need a lot.
Yeah.
Remember, when people do it for, when it's forensic people doing it for police work, like they're getting trace stuff and they can still amplify that. So we don't need a ton. And that's also good for you when you're sending it. So you get that little piece, set it out on a shelf for a day or two, make sure it's completely dry, put it in a Ziploc bag, and then just write on there, give it a name or an animal ID, some way for us to be able to identify, let you know, hey, we found this or that or whatever later on. So a name or an ID, and then we want to know the sex, and then any known morphs, mutations, and any possible morphs, mutations. So those are the four things we want. And you can either write it right on the bag with a Sharpie, or you can write it on a piece of paper or a card and put it inside the bag with the shed. Either way works. People that are doing lots and lots of sheds, like if you're going to send in 50 or 100 or a couple hundred, we have people that do that. They found it easier to get little manila envelopes, little tiny envelopes. And you just put the shed into that right as you pull it. You don't need to worry about letting it dry because it's going to dry in that envelope. So you can just do it that way too, and just write on the envelope the information. That works too. You just got to make sure you don't let that get in the rain or in a room with high humidity, because it's not going to protect it like a Ziploc will. But yeah, that's what we need.
Fantastic. And if you do not want to ship them, but you don't mind saving them, you could always bring them to Colubrid Fest, because in addition to sponsoring the Science Update, RGI is also sponsoring Colubrid Fest, and they will be present. They will be there. So you guys will be able to meet Ben, to ask about what the direction is with the testing, what they're going to be looking for, where it's going, and they will be there to collect sheds. So please, listeners,
please
save your sheds, just like Ben described. Bring them to Colubrid Fest. I would love nothing more than for Ben to have to get an additional suitcase to drag all this shit home. So, this is going to be a great thing for our segment of the hobby, and let's make sure we're doing our part to bring Ben and his team everything they need to really jumpstart it. With that being said, so as Ben mentioned, they do have a sex determination test for colubrids, and there's really kind of two segments to this that I want to make sure that we shout out. First, if you are a hobbyist that doesn't have someone nearby that you trust, or if you bought your corn snake from a local pet store, that type of thing, and you need to know or would like to know the sex, you can always submit this. I believe it's through Morph Market or Clutch. Is that right? Where these can be ordered?
For colubrid testing, it's just Morph Market.
Just Morph. Okay, so Morph Market, you can go on there and submit it, and I believe it's $20 if I'm right. So $20 for a sex determination. Now, here's the cool thing for our listeners that have tons of babies every year. We've talked it over with Ben and Sean, and they will offer discounted rates directly through RGI. Now, it would have to be a minimum of 10 animals in order to be able to do this. And if you are submitting 10, it'll drop down to $15 per animal. And if it's larger quantities, so let's say you've got 100 that you want to check, we can put you in contact with Sean. I believe the email address is
raregeninc@gmail.com.
There you go. raregeninc@gmail.com. You email him how many that you're looking for, and he will come back with an even better rate for larger quantities. And here's the thing I want to kind of put out there. So for those of us who have been doing this a long time, we may be fairly confident with our males, right? We're popping babies, miles and miles, right? Miles and miles of hemipene. However, and this is even this year, I've got a group of Nablocki, and there was another clutch that I want to say there's like 15, 18 babies in a row. No Hemi. And I'm like, I've got to be doing something wrong with this one because I'm getting nowhere. So this is a great way to double check your females for sure. And in fact, mistakes happen. I don't care how good you are, how much experience you have. Right now, there is a young lady who is shipping a, it's, I want to say like a 1.5 year old cave dwelling rat snake back to me that we sexed when it was a baby. And we thought female, and now it's probed male. And, by God, I'm going to make it right, obviously. But my whole point is, instead of waiting for a year, 2 years down the road, because we've all had that heartbreak, haven't we? And, it's, we're going to put them together, and, they're not loving, they're fighting because it's two males. So please do this, because this is also a great way for us to support RGI and their colubrid division, because let's face it, to get any of these tests accomplished, to map this out, it's not cheap. It takes a big investment by Ben and his team over there in order to develop these tests. So this is a way for us to certainly be supporting them now for what they're doing for our segment, coming down the pipeline. So I'm excited. I'm stoked. I love that you're, a part of the show now, Ben. I love that you guys are coming to Colubrid Fest, and I cannot wait to see what you guys come up with. It's exciting stuff.
Yeah, we're excited too. It's like I said, perfect timing. We're about ready. Actually, I even told Kayla at one point, I was like, I think September is going to be when we'll be able to make that shift. And that's
perfect.
Colubrid Fest is.
I love it.
Yep,
I love it. Well, Ben, anything else that you want our listeners to know? Anything we missed?
Not that I can think of. Just excited and look forward to getting samples from y'all and be able to make some tests available.
I love it. And of course, everyone, go ahead.
Oh, one of the things that we talked about doing, which I'm excited about, is that we're going to bring Ben and company on periodically to talk about the tests, but also to kind of explain the science behind morphs and the genetics and like what is going on. Because I will say that I've talked with a lot of people. I get a lot of people messaging me trying to understand this. And there's at West Liberty this summer with the students, we were talking a lot about there's perception and then there's reality. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to understanding genetics and these kind of Mendelian traits, the way we think we understand them, there's perception, and then there's reality. And I can tell you, genes do some weird crap that you cannot show in a Punnett square. It's not going to show up in a Punnett square. With my day job, I don't do this not with snakes. I do this with crayfish, but with a lot of the species delimitation stuff, we'll get our results back using bioinformatics, things like RADseq, if you know what that is. And I get those back, and I like my head just turns like a clock as I'm looking at the admixture plot that came back, trying to think like, how in the hell is that even possible? So I think one of the great services that RGI is going to be able to do, and I've been dreaming about these episodes because I'm going to learn something too. Is just explaining some of these genetics concepts to our listeners so that you really understand what it means to be co-dominant, what that really is. Because I know I've read some things online where I was like, that's not what I was taught.
No, I don't
So
know
that's-
of any reptile co-dominant traits at all.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah.
And we talk about that all the time. Like, and
Right.
so
Yep.
that they just don't exist. But other things exist. And I just never really understood why those other things weren't put into the conversation. So bringing, expanding the science update to include the science and getting the genetics out there for everybody, that's just awesome. So
yeah. Well, and I'm excited
about
that
as I am everything else.
every time they map out a new mutation, that they've got it synced with, it's come and announce it. We get to tell the world, hey,
Right.
here's the new one that they just mapped out. So that's that too is very exciting. So, well,
All
Ben,
right. So
thank you so much, for everything.
Thank
you for coming on, and looking forward to having a whole episode, dedicated to chatting with you. So,
Yep, that switch is coming soon. That'll be a good time to do it.
you got it.
All righty. All right, man. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks again.
Okay. So,
all right.
Good
That's
stuff.
cool stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, real cool stuff. So, speaking of cool stuff, it's been a week, 7 days. How's the market looking there, Clint?
It continues to do exactly what we thought. I'm going to go through it quick because we've got another guest who's obviously been waiting on us for a while. So let me see if I can do this right. I remember how to do it.
We're clicking buttons.
I am.
If you listen on the radio.
I'm pulling up some graphs here. All right. So can you see everything okay?
Yes.
All right. So we did have some changes occur, obviously, and they continue to move in the right direction or the anticipated direction. We've got every category increased in Morph Market. And before I go any further, as always, our market update is sponsored by the Show Me Marketplace and Show Me Reptiles. So please check out your local shows. I think we just went over those last week. So this is going to be the same shows, that I mentioned. But check those out, and please support them as they support us. So every category continued to increase. We had ball pythons with a market change of 352 added. That was a 1.1% increase. The rest of the python group, 100 added, 5% increase. We had boas, 62. That's a 1% increase. The big one, colubrids, 329, a 6% increase. So they are hatching, and I know I was a chunk of that. I know I say that all the time, but man, I've been loading them up like crazy. Let's see, colubrids. Now it's part of this is being covered on my screen, unfortunately. Corn snakes, 118 increase, 9%. Hog nose, I think that's 100.
Man,
kind of blocked.
This is just a week. That's what people.
1 week, yeah. You're exactly
in January,
right.
we went like 3 episodes in a row, and I think they added 30.
Yeah. So exactly. And this is all just 1 week's data. And normally when we're reporting these numbers, it's 2, so this is just half that time. And we're seeing this increase. So hognose, same thing, 9%. All other colubrids, an additional 43, so 2%. And you can see the breakdowns on the graph here. Ball pythons, now, they dropped a little bit because at one point these were at 76% of the overall market. They are down to 72% of the overall market as colubrids have now moved to 12%. We've got boas over here at 11, and all other pythons at 5. We continue to see, the dominant forces of the corn snake and hognose. However, if you look at this, corn snakes have come down now to 26% of the overall colubrid market. All others are up to 38%. So that's interesting, seeing that we've got more and more variety. And my assumption is we're having more king snakes. Like I know I put a bunch of Eastern kings up for grabs. So you're going to see the Eastern kings, the Florida kings, those that are in California kings. Those 3 in particular are groups that will bump that 38%, and we'll continue to see the all others category probably rise a little bit faster than we see the other two. So cool stuff there. Here's a quick graph showing the overall trend of ball pythons and, of course, all snakes listed on Morph Market. And you can see we continue to see that pop up. Boom, boom. Fun stuff there. And colubrids on Morph Market. I mean, you can see it's been a drastic that's been coming, ever since June, but it's growing, and it's growing fast, and I like it. I can say that from, let me see if I can get out of this. From the shop's perspective, as well as online, we see the same kind of traffic that we have been, although, as I mentioned earlier, this week, I'm expecting a slight decline. And then for the first few minutes first few days next week, the same thing. And that's going to be because of our anniversary event. So we have what I would call a micro anomaly in the industry, meaning that's not something that's going to affect everybody else, but it's going to affect us locally. But macro, so across the nation, online sales have really picked up for us over the past few days. And I think part of that is as more babies hatch out, you see so many new things go on. So obviously you have new, we'll call it faces, online that, as far as animals, people are seeing these and getting excited. But the more babies that everyone is producing and putting on, the more attention that starts coming to the platforms. Everyone's getting on there and getting excited again because there's so much, so many new things. We are having package after package that's going out here lately. So again, very, very exciting stuff. And I'm hoping and assuming that others are seeing the same thing with their online sales. If you're not, my suggestion would be you need to get pictures posted as quickly as possible. If it's animals that you've been sitting on for a long time, the ad may be stagnant. And so that's, it's not going to get traction. Take new pictures of animals that you may have had, get those out there because it's going to refresh things. And if we're colubrid keepers, let's face it, the snake's going to look better now than it did 6 months ago. That's what colubrids do. So do that because people are starting to chomp at the bit. It's time. It is time. Yeah. So that's what I have for the market update.
Boom. Okay. So our guest tonight has been very patiently waiting, and we are happy that he's waited. This is so our guest tonight, Jason Nelson, and I will tell you, if you listen to Colubrid Corruption, where Clint and I were on talking about Colubrid Fest, and we don't listen to that for Colubrid Fest updates, and pay attention to the website because the biographies are going to be, they would have already gotten up, but by the time that you are listening to this, and that's our next, bit on that. But I told the origin story of CCR, and Jason was one of the short list of initial guests I wanted to bring on. So it's been a while since the start, but I feel like an original idea is being fulfilled tonight, which is pretty awesome. So with that being said, live from his truck in Utah, we have with us tonight Jason Nelson. So how you doing, man?
Good. How are you guys? Good to be here.
Good to have you, Jason.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm geeked. A lot of people don't know that even though I talk about the king snakes all the time, bulls were and will always be one of my absolute loves in the colubrid world. I have some ventilation issues. My house is pretty wet, for lack of a better word, so it's not the best for Pituophis that like to be a little drier and don't really do well with the high humidity. So, I don't have those here because of that. But if I had a drier house, I love my king snakes. Sorry, king snake keepers. I'd probably have a hell of a lot more Pituophis to go along with all those stanky ass Florida kings that like to bite and crap all over me. So anyway, so this is going to be, this is what I've been waiting for a long time. So, so with that being said, our kind of first guest on the show, this is one of our, as Clint and I call it, bread and butter episodes, where we're talking to a breeder about a species or a species group. What's your origin story when it comes to reptiles? Is this something you've been doing forever? Did you just start this, late in life? What's the deal on that front?
Yeah, I've always been into reptiles as long as I can remember as a kid, and I used to keep mostly smaller lizards and tree frogs and stuff, and then it just, I don't know. It's been almost 30 years now since I started breeding colubrids, so it's been a long road actually.
So what do you keep now? We know pits. We're going to talk all about that. But
Yeah.
what's the reptile room or building or whatever it is that your reptile mecca? What does it look like?
Oh, it's a dump. No, it fits well with the smell,
Mhm.
No, I like to keep a big variety. In fact, I got some from you, Clint. I got some of those moonshine rats like 4 years ago or something like that. Just wanted to play with some new colors, so I'm always kind of upgrading a little bit, and yeah.
That's great. So you keep the moonshines, you keep the pits. So you said you started like with tree frogs and whatnot. What moved you to colubrids? What captured you there?
I did like snakes when I was younger, and then I just moved to smaller lizards and frogs. But then, kind of went back to my roots, and we didn't. I used, before the internet and all that stuff. It's like I thought I was the only crazy one out there doing this stuff, but apparently there's a whole bunch of us. No, I just remember seeing like Reptile magazine came out, and you're seeing these king snakes, Arizona Mountain Kings, and gray bands, and you're just like, look at these colors. This is nature created these beautiful colors. Like, it was just gravitating.
Yeah. It's funny. You say that about Reptiles magazine, and as you name a couple of those species, I can see the articles.
So can I.
I remember them. You know what I mean? From way back when. That's just crazy. That little bit of nostalgia that one sentence was able to bring. I'm like, I know what pictures you're talking about. I remember that.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
That's incredible. That's good.
Very, very cool. So when I messaged you yesterday and said, give me a list of what you're keeping so I know what we can talk about. We'll talk about Pituophis tonight, but for our listeners, what are the milk snake species, the Lampropeltis that you're keeping right now?
Yeah, I this first year I legally collected a pair of Utah Mountain Kings.
Nice.
I got my own locality data. Yeah.
There you go.
First year breeding them, but Arizona Mountain Kings. I love Alterna. I just hatched out some hypos and aneries and like going crazy over. And I have my localities too. Cal Kings. But I really made a big shift, and I've always loved milk snakes, and I love the North American, the U.S. species, Cispilla, the Taylor, all these, all the Western. I'm just fascinated how variant they are, all the way from Utah all the way to the East Coast. And last week, we caught a milk snake out here, and it's so beautiful, man.
I believe it.
Yeah. So one species that I saw on your list with the milks that intrigued me, because I'm not allowed to keep them here because they're native here, is I saw that you keep Easterns. Do you have those?
Yep, I bought a little group from Dave Niles. I bought all his breeding group, and which consisted of T-positive albinos, and then I have this weird, it looks like a ghost, but it's some type of anery. Trying to get that off the ground, and then a few locality stuff, But yeah, I really dig them. They're very underrated for sure.
Oh, they're yeah. Like I said, I kept them in college. I usually had at least one or two milks where it was the classic back in the early 2000s. Go out, find one in April or May, and then I would keep it, feed it, and then I did a lot of snake shows in libraries and nature centers and things like that. And I always brought the Eastern milk because here on the East Coast, lots of Easterns die because people think they're copperheads. And so I had a copperhead, an eastern, and a water snake. And then at the end of the season, I would usually release an incredibly well-fed, ready to go into hibernation eastern milk right back to where I, whatever piece of tin or door or whatever I flipped over to get that thing. But they've always fascinated me. And when I got back into herpetoculture, I was like, man, I think locality easterns would be a cool thing. But then the West Virginia herp regs came out and it was no natives. So it's like, all right, that's going away. So anyway.
Yeah. I've heard that I've heard that there's a few states over there don't allow it. I did get some this is a shout out to my buddy Russ Cormack. He breeds locality easterns from the Carolinas, and he's got some neat ones.
Very, very cool.
Nice.
All right.
Nice.
So when it comes to the collection, I've seen you're on YouTube quite a bit. And I've seen videos of your setup, which is pretty awesome and impressive. When did you go from I have some snakes to I have snakes? If you know what I'm saying, where there's just, just talk a little bit about your facility or your room, if you don't mind, and then what that what caused that transition from 20 to 30 to now I have like a legit operation and several animals are at my collection and no one else's.
Yeah, I kind of made that big jump when I quit doing snakes out of my basement, and I had to, you're renting a building and, or whatever, and, you got overhead now, and and so you got to bump your numbers up. You got to bump your numbers up to cover cost, and but yeah, I keep about 500 snakes, personal keepers, which it's a lot of work, but it's manageable right now.
Very cool. So they're in an off-site facility from your house?
Yeah, it's like 5 miles from my house. I just got this my friend used to own the building. He's the one that turned me onto it because it's hard to find a place. It's hard to find a place it's going to let you keep animals, but
yeah,
I did find one, and it's kind of nice not to have them at the house because you don't have the stink and
you're never playing for that who didn't eat the mouse game, when you walk in the door, and yeah.
Turns out wives are really good at that.
For some reason my nose doesn't work.
Yeah, mine doesn't either. We played that game last night in the Loafman household, actually. So
that was actually one of the selling points on being able to start Metazotics, because it was either we build our house on the property that we had purchased, that where our dream property and dream house, or I start the business. It was one or the other. We weren't going to be able to do both. And so that was the selling point, was telling them, well, listen, it's going to be like you got a new house because of all the space that's going to be created with all the reptiles out of here. And that's it. It was. It opened up a lot.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
Good stuff.
So when did you make that move?
In 2009.
Okay.
Yeah,
so it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been about good 15 or so.
Now, is this what you do full time, Jason?
No, right now I'm working a job as well, so I'm like stretched, like you were saying earlier. Talking about stretched out. That's exactly how I feel right now, and you got all these babies hatching, and but yeah,
that's the part people don't think about. It's one thing to take care of a 500 snake collection. That is work in itself.
Yeah,
but to take care of that and all the hatchlings when that season comes around, it's you see the eggs hatching, you're like, all right, and then you set them up and you're like, oh shit, because there's so many of them.
Yeah, for sure. And just going, you just got to check on them and make sure they have water, food, they're not uneatens, and it's just a ton of work, but I love it. I still love it. So after all this time, so
I get it. Yeah, that's one thing I've got to say too, is as tired as I've had, been and so much going on, there's never been a day that I've walked in here that I didn't want to. I've
Yeah.
always, I'm happy to be here. It's better than anywhere else. So
Yeah, I was kind of talking to a friend the other on Sunday, and I was just like, I just had a down day, and I just spent like 6 hours down at the shop, and not in a hurry, and not being in a hurry, and getting to actually enjoy what you do. Yeah, Sunday was an awesome day, and then today was hurry, hurry, hurry. So it's like,
yeah, yep.
Right back into it. Okay, so one question I want to know is, at what point did Pituophis start to dominate the conversation? Because, well, we'll get into the types of pits you have, but just the kind of origin story on the bull snakes, I'm really curious about that. You're in Utah, so is it because you had gopher snakes around and it was familiarity, or was it something different besides that?
It was, I was a Lamprey-Peltis guy, and I used to Rick Blair, an old, anybody that's been around a while knows that name. He lived fairly near me, and I could just go over there in hatching season and pick out stuff by hand, So it was, and I just remember being over there one day, and he had, these aren't bull snakes, but they were albino Sonoran gophers, and I'm like, well, what do these cost, And he's like, oh, $100 a pair, and I bought those things, and those became my favorite snakes, man.
Nice.
It was just like, wow, these eat every time, they grow right in front of me.
Yeah,
I like this. This is good. These are growing. They're growing fast.
So what all pits do you keep? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, shortly after that, I was into bull snakes pretty quickly, and that was about, I would say that was about 99 is when I started really getting into pits.
So you got a few years under your belt with them, is what you're telling us.
For sure.
A couple. So what pits do you keep?
Bull snakes, but my bull snakes are huge, and so are these four species of gopher snakes: Great Basins, San Diego's, Sonorans, and Pacifics. I love working with those subspecies. But I also have Depii,
Nice.
Depii Jani.
Yeah.
I got some Gibsoni. There's not a lot of people with those.
Nice.
I got some Caped gophers. I just lost my black pines, but they got old. They were old. But I have northerns and Florida pines as well.
Nice. Very
Very
nice.
Cool.
I just said on the our last. Well, no, I don't know if this was our last episode that I did it or not.
It was.
But was it? So
it was Joe's show.
Yeah. I had never bred pits before, and it's funny because I didn't even realize that until this happened. Then I'm like, oh no, I never did I? So right now I'm keeping northern pines, growing some of those up. I've got some black pines, but we'll need to get a female set. But I've got some Mexican line pines. I'm sorry, yes, Mexican line pines, and produced one this season.
Wow.
I had one egg go, full and hatch out a baby. Unfortunately, it was a male because I was hoping that we'd get another female out of it. But I thought that was a pretty neat one to be my first pit to successfully produce.
That is
Mexican line pine. So pretty neat stuff.
Yeah, that is cool. It was funny because when they came out the first year, they were available in numbers. I got some. There was like 2 females laid, there was 52 babies or something out of those 2 females.
Nice.
And you think there would be a lot around, but people are having a hard time finding them.
Yeah.
I don't know where they're all at, but there's got to be some out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hoping to have better success next year with them, as we continue to dial things in. But let's see. One, I'll take it. I get to check that species, off the list as far as produced. So
Yeah, that's a good one.
good stuff.
Yeah.
How do you keep your bulls? Are you got them in large racks? Do you have caging? What does that look like?
I'm using a lot of CB70 tubs. I want it works pretty well for a lot of them, but it's a little small for a lot of them as well. And so, I got a boa file. But it's just, I would love for someone to come out with a rack that was just, a little bit bigger of a tub, It's because they're big, large animals. I get people asking me, like, bull snakes, they get 8 feet. And I'm like, well, sometimes, but most generally not. I would say 6 foot's pretty average for a bull.
Yeah.
And that's a CB70. That's not a big tub for such a large animal. So
yeah, and then they're heavy bodied on top of it. It's because it's like you get things like a Blue Beauty, for example, where you're looking at 8 feet, 10 feet, but they don't look like it. Until you're pulling them out of the cage and they just keep coming. There's just more and more snake that you're yanking out here. But bulls, there's a lot of body that goes with that length. A lot of girth and a lot of mass there. So makes sense. Now, do you do any additional like air holes, things like that, in the tubs to try to combat humidity hell, you're in Utah, so there's none anyway.
We don't have to do much.
So never mind.
I get some dry sheds, so I don't
I
don't have that problem too much, especially now that I don't use wooden racks or it's all metal or plastic nowadays, and so the wood racks will hold in humidity, but I don't have that problem too much anymore. So
I forgot how dry it was in Utah. I used to fly out there for work, and after about a day to day and a half, I'd start blowing my nose and it'd be blood because it's so dry. And where I'm at, we're right on the Ohio River, so there's a good amount of humidity. Yeah, so I'm used to there being moisture in the air, and not there at all.
I tend to add a lot of moisture boxes to cages because of the lack of humidity, actually.
I believe it. Very good.
So, there went my lights. So, with the bulls, when I've hatched maybe 3 clutches of bull snakes here, so I had some Yankees that did pretty well here for a little while. And then, I guess it's Pituophis. There were some loading eye, some black pines that went here. Here being my house, at the university we produced several clutches of bulls, and I think they were San Diego Gophers. But when you get the eggs, we'll start with eggs. What temps are you incubating them at? Because I've seen some Pituophis people do the classic, put it in the shoebox, put it up on the shelf. Other people throw them in an incubator and hold them at 80, 82. Other people hold them at 75, 77. So what's Jason's approach when it comes to incubating eggs? And then we'll move on to getting babies started and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, I shoot for 78.
Okay.
I've done a lot of temperatures. I've done a lot of playing around with temperatures with pits, and I feel like 78 really gives me and I don't know, I know people say that temperatures don't dictate sexes and stuff, but for whatever reason, I get a really even ratio around 78.
Oh, that's cool.
It takes them 10 weeks to hatch. It takes a little longer. But yeah, they seem to do very well. I don't use an incubator. I fight the heat at my place. It's hard to control the temperatures. So I do get a lot of fluctuation in temperatures, and I'm fine with that. I think that's actually kind of good for the eggs, even
it's natural.
I don't think that Mother Nature holds a constant temperature.
Right.
And so I think that's fine. That kind of mimics, not really, but kind of mimics the wild a little bit in the sense that it fluctuates. But I sometimes I'll have a 10 degree swing from morning to night, and so I have coolers. That I keep them in the eggs, just so that temperatures aren't swinging drastically quick. But I don't mind them swinging. I just don't want it, a quick 10-degree change.
Yeah.
And then if power goes out, they're good in there for a while, and so.
So is the building being held at an ambient of 78? Is that how you're holding it?
That's how yep, that's what I shoot for.
Now, do you winter your bulls?
Oh yeah, I do a 4-month brumation with all my clues.
Wow. Okay, that's something we don't hear often.
Right, like people get anxious, and you know what? I love that downtime.
I hear you there.
I love that downtime. I love that I'm not spending much money on food too, but but the biggest thing I love is I feel like it's bumped my fertility rates up about 5%. So
I could see that.
Our winters here in Utah I know they're longer than 3 months. So they're built for it,
Gotcha.
And I don't see a lot of body weight loss, in 4 months. So I think it's it works for me.
So now, what does it look like for you? Do you drop them off gradually? Do you just kind of flip the lights and?
Yeah, I have a separate room I roll them into, that I can keep a little more cooler. It's just a room next door, but I let it gradually, and it just kind of naturally happens because I hibernate or brumate from November 1st to March 1st, and a lot of times in November it's still kind of warmish. You get some warm days here and there, so they tend to gradually go down from like low 60s, and I'll try to get them down to about, I shoot for like 51, 52 in there.
Nice.
Interesting. So if you're putting them down on November 1st, do you stop feeding sometime in October?
Yeah, at least, I usually try to give them 3 weeks to clean out. Sometimes it's only 2 weeks, but yeah, I kind of shoot for like 21 to 14 days to clean out.
So it's cool that you're saying this, because in the past year, I've gone all over the country looking for hognose snakes in particular. And what's really interesting is up until then, I've been here on the East Coast doing my thing. And farthest I would go was Florida. And you go down to Florida, and winter is, they don't have it. and if you're listening and you're from Florida and you're like, yes, we do. No, you don't. You don't have it. So I was going kind of north-south, but I really never went west. And when I started going west, and I'm in Iowa, and I'm in Minnesota, Colorado, I'm getting in there in May and June, and it is noticeably, you can tell we're still in like late spring, if that makes sense. And it just got my brain going with all these snakes that are intercontinental. If we apply this kind of East Coast seasonality to them, are we doing something that may not ultimately work out? Now, obviously it works out. We get eggs from all these things, but I have oftentimes thought, why the hell aren't we doing this from like Halloween? They go down and then they come up March, which is pretty much what you're saying, because the next day after Halloween is November 1st.
Yeah.
Because that is a more traditional season. Now, granted, with the way the weather works now, Lord knows what the hell's going on.
Yeah, that's the problem here.
Yeah. So, you're fighting. I talk about the garage here a lot, and it doesn't get to 50 until like the first week of December, really.
Oh, wow.
But the fertility rate, I ran into a couple fertility issues, and the snakes that did not produce this year were the ones that just didn't get cold and stay cold. So we do. This is one of the reoccurring themes on our show. It's like, to brumate or not to brumate. That is the question.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like with you, you're getting a little bit of a bump in your overall production, being able to do the longer brumation.
Yeah, I mean it's 5%. It's not huge, but it is kind of huge when you're I don't know. I always kind of expect you can never. You're breeding this many snakes, it's never going to be perfect. But I started doing it, and I did it originally just to have more time for my family. But then I started noticing like that I think it's beneficial and in many ways. But I did notice a slight increase in fertility. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so these guys hatch. I found Pituophis to be a dream to get started compared to those damn king snakes. But with the kanks I hatched here last year, I didn't have a lot of them. I think I had a small clutch, like 6, but I threw in large pinkies, and they were all gone in like 10 minutes. It was like I heard thrashing. I was like, what the hell's going on in there? And they were acting like bull snakes, where they were very aggressively eating the very dead mouse. So, are there any Pituophis in your experience that can be a little bit cumbersome to get started, or is my experience pretty normal? Because I've every Pituophis I've worked with, and I think I've got 3 under my belt now, they were just real easy compared to others.
Definitely. I work with a lot of Great Basins, and they're native here, and I've had permits, and now I don't need the permits, but laws have changed. But they're a little more shy than some of the other species, and as they can be big, but they tend to be more slender than some of the other subspecies. And sometimes you get some that are ferocious, but I've had plenty where I'm lizard scenting for pits. Like, it's like, what the
Really?
wrong with you guys? But I mean, it's a lot of it's individuals, but yeah, I've noticed in Desert Acola, the Great Basin gophers, that they can be finicky at times. Not so much with the others, like bulls, and like I had a clutch of bull snakes that shed out a few days ago, my first clutch, and there was 17. I fed them yesterday 2 days ago for the first time offering them. It's only been a week, or 3 or 4 days since they shed, and all but 1 egg. Like,
there you go.
So
you gotta love that.
I just love it.
Yeah.
I thought corns were supposed to be easy, and they're tougher than pits for sure.
Oh, they are. Well, the other thing that's great about pits is most of them, they come out, at least definitely bulls and pines. They're big enough that you don't have to have that whole, I can't find a pinky small enough for you to eat.
Oh,
which, yeah. False water cobras, for the record, are the exact same way. I breed these hard to find South American snakes. They're the easiest damn snakes on earth. It's the king snakes that are a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
So
Specialists. Yeah.
For sure. I agree.
So do you find that most of your pits go at the same rate? And what I mean is, do you have certain species, subspecies that are, well, these are later breeders, these are always going to be the last ones to produce, or are they all pretty much in line with one another?
No, they're all over the place. They are. And it's funny because it's like I get people message me and like, I've been putting these things together and blah, they won't breed. And I'm like, well, what are you working with? How long's it been? I'm like, and they're like, it's a Sonoran gopher. it's been 4 weeks, and I'm like, well, they haven't even started to ovulate yet. You got another month. So yeah, certain species will come out just like your Lampropeltis, all your king snakes and stuff. They'll come out, about week 4. I don't even go by sheds. I go by more like time lengths. I've kind of created my own system and everything, but like it's just what works for me, and I would encourage everybody to do that. But but yeah, just through working with these animals, these species, like my bull snakes, my Great Basins, my Pacifics, they tend to go right away. Like week 5, 4, 5, 6 in there, they'll start breeding. Sonoran gophers, San Diegos, they're some of my last stuff to go in my collection. They sometimes I won't even put them together till week 8 or 9.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, do you introduce, separate, or do you throw together and cohab for a while?
I have done the cohab. I learned that from a friend. I was struggling with San Diego gophers, and he told me to keep them in groups. And it did work really well, but I don't do that anymore. I just kind of figured out they breed later, through trial and error. But so I'll feed them. I'll feed these snakes. Kind of my routine is I'll feed my snakes on a certain day, and then I'll wait for 3 days for them to digest, and then 3 to 4 days, and then I'll put them together for 3 to 4 days, and then separate them to feed them, and then start it all over again. But and sometimes you swap. You're using males on multiple females, so you're doing the whole swap and all that. But I like to give them, like, I've heard of people, only putting them together for 8 hours a day, and it's just, I put them together for days at a time. And I don't see a lot of stuff breed, but I sure see them getting gravid and fat.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I follow a similar routine with most of the species where I, kind of feed on Monday, Tuesday, maybe up to Wednesday is what, well, Steve is feeding them Monday, Tuesday up to Wednesday. And then on Friday or Saturday, I'm going through and pairing everybody and leaving them together until Monday, where he separates and starts the whole process over, during the breeding season. So yeah, very similar to your method.
Yeah, it works really well, I feel like.
Yeah. And I think to your point too, when you're using, one male on multiple females, it helps having this routine, to make sure that he's with a female for the right amount of time, gets a break, then, introduced to the next one for the same amount of time.
Yeah. I do think that break is super important to give them that time away.
Interesting.
Yeah. I agree.
Very cool.
So I kind of want to ask something different that we've never really asked before, but whenever you have someone who has the size collection that you do and is working with so many different species and subspecies of the same type of animal pit, I kind of want to ask a market question, on this.
Okay.
So what do you see as kind of the most popular pits right now? And that can be, if it's bull, what's the morph? If it's, tell me more, because pits are something that I have just dabbled in, really. It's not an area that I feel, this is what I know everyone tends to like, or this is something that is harder to find, so I'm curious about the pit market, I guess. What do you see?
Pit market's really good. There's certain things that will, struggle bus and take their time getting sold, but there's a lot of hot items too, and people know who I am, and they seek me out and for certain things. But by far and away, the most popular pit is bull snakes, and anything patternless, anything that has patternless in it. the Asian market's just gone crazy for the last 6 years. They're still going crazy. I get many messages through China from China. So, and some of the other ones, Korea and Taiwan, but even here in the States, anything patternless, it's gone. Like it doesn't sit. It doesn't sit. Like if you post a patternless, even just the normal patternless, which I don't think are very attractive, they're gone. They're just gone immediately.
Nice.
And so yeah, that's fun. Certain gopher snakes, certain morphs will just people line up and
So like the Applegate.
Oh yeah.
Say I knew
still
those are
after 30 years, they still are gone immediately.
Yeah.
At least the good ones are.
Right. What are the species that it is hard to get your hands on? You know, you mentioned something about that earlier. What are some of those rarer ones?
The Depii or the Lineatricolus gibsoni, that I think only 3 or 4 people have these. That's a real rare one. There was only 2 animals taken out of the wild.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
Yeah, and then there was a zoo animal. Like I ended up with some of John Ginter's animals, and those are really hard. I haven't bred them yet. I haven't got to that point. But me and my friend have this conversation almost every week. We love Depii are my second favorite snake all time.
Really? So not Geni, the one that everybody has.
No, the Geni are more colorful and vibrant. I just love the personality of the Depii.
Okay.
And I love their look. I love their colors. And people kind of noticed what I noticed, and I get blown up for these things, and I don't have any available. But they're becoming almost. I'm worried that they're going to become extinct in the hobby because we are not getting enough bloodlines, and something's going not. I guess something's not right. Maybe we're not keeping them properly, but the numbers are shrinking, and the popularity is going crazy. And Mexico's not going to allow us to have them probably again. I don't know, maybe someday, but that's a species that's extremely hard to get right now, and they weren't 15 years ago.
Are they hard to breed?
Not really. I think some of there was 2 bloodlines. I think they got a little inbred on some of them, and there's still some out there, and I'm nervous to buy them myself because it's like I don't want to buy a weak animal,
Right.
So I don't know what's going to happen with that market or that species, but it's one of great desire right now because of the rarity, and they're declining in captivity quite quickly.
Is there one that you don't understand the popularity? Like, you know what I mean? There's sometimes there's some that it's like, why do so many people want this? Kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. All the pine snakes are pretty awesome. But if I had to say anything, like Louisiana pines and black pines, they're federally protected. It's a hard they're neat and stuff, but it's like that's a hard animal, because you have to get permits. The buyers have to get permits for those, and it's kind of a process. But as far as species goes, there's a few that are like, I'm just like whatever. But I like they don't do a lot for me. Like even caped gophers, I think they're one of the most prettiest species out there. Their colors are amazing, but I've just not had good luck with them. And I've had several, probably 3 or 4 different pairs from different breeders, and I just never have good luck with them. And they just, I guess having such bad luck with them has turned me off about them a little bit.
Yeah,
So,
that's fair.
Cool. So,
and I have found those in the wild. I found them in Mexico, in the Baja.
Oh, that's cool.
And that made my day. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, anytime you get to see these things in the wild, it's the best.
Yeah. Seeing any snake in the wild gets me excited.
Yeah.
Like, hey, look, snake.
Yeah. Yep.
So, morph wise, I know you're responsible for a couple morphs, and I know you're responsible for perfecting a couple morphs. Can you talk about that process in which, just kind of go over some of the morphs that you're working with right now that are, Nelson line or people know you for?
Yeah. I've created actually quite a few.
Yeah.
A lot of them I don't put my name on them. I just call them whatever they are. But I did. There's a few of them I named, and because I was proud of it, and they were long adventures. And if you know me, like I'm always working on something new. I have so many ideas. Like people think bull snakes are gonna dry. Like I have tons of new ideas and tons of stuff in the works that haven't been created yet. And so, but getting back to your question, sorry. Envy Snow San Diego's is one I named after Envy Reptiles, and I was super excited about that, and I just love the way they turned out and they look, and they're still as popular as the first day they were produced. So
can you go over how you did that? Everybody that listens knows I'm not really a morph guy, but I saw those and was like, I am a morph guy now.
Yeah,
those things are phenomenal.
I mean, when you see an albino with a normal or a silver iris, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
The albino pits are pretty cool because they're just different than a lot of the other colubrids, but they're vibrant and they're bright yellows and oranges, and they're amazing. But I just the red eye, like a lot of people are turned off by that, and I don't hate it per se, but like I think a T positive snow of any species is neater than a regular snow. Just because you get that more of that purple melanin color, and they're just way more colorful, the T positives than the T negatives. And so
I agree 100% with that. In almost any species, I prefer T positive over T negative. Almost every time.
Yep, for sure. And so, like, some of my favorite things I tried to do this and it didn't work. I don't understand. It's one of my favorite genes, and I cannot. I tried for years and years and years. I produced hundreds of snakes out of these double hets and never could produce the snake I wanted. And what that was a rusty Sonoran, which I don't even know. Some people say that's a T positive. I'm not sure that's correct, but they're vibrant and they got total normalized, not ruby, not total normal. But they have the albino colors, like the T positive colors. They have the purples and maroons and brick reds and all these yellows. But I thought breeding that to an Xanthic Sonoran, I'm like, this is going to be the coolest snake ever, like in my mind. And I started that process in 2001. I made the heads, and then I raised those up, and I kept a little group, like 2.3, and I bred them, and I bred them, and I bred them, and I bred them, and I would get Xanthics, I'd get Rusties, but I didn't get the double. And so I would just sell these things off, I would just sell them off, and I kept some and this and that. And I'm like, one day I get this email, and I'm like, this guy's like, I don't know what's going on with this snake I got from you, but it looks like it's in the blue 24/7, but it's not. And it was a rusty. It was sold to him as a rusty, it was total normal, vibrant colors. But as it got older, it got this blue, this like
Yeah.
cast to it all the time. Like it's not pretty, it's not what I wanted. But
There it is.
that rusty gene does not mesh well. It does the same thing with albinos. You can't tell that it's mixed in there. So that's a tricky one, but very fascinating genetically.
Very cool. And then is there another one that you've made? Since you said you made several, so we know the answer is yes.
Yeah, I mean, I've made the Rusty Meeker Sonoran. I've made the Xanthic Meeker Sonoran. I've got more other way neat stuff in the works with Sonorans. I am going to blow up this Sonoran market here pretty soon with all this new stuff. I got a Rusty Forks last year, which is a patternless Rusty.
Oh, nice.
I didn't land on the Xanthic. I struck out. Maybe this year will be the year, but every year almost I have a chance to produce something that's never been done. I always set myself up for that, and that's what makes me tick. That's what makes me so excited for this hobby.
Yeah.
I love creating. That's my jam.
Do you have like a most anticipated clutch of this season? Is there one that's above all else that you're really?
Yeah. And they just hatched this week, and they didn't turn out exactly how I wanted, but I'm super happy. But I did an Xanthic or an Anery gray band to a long blotch. I want to create that long, these bands. I don't know if you ever seen any of my pictures of the long blotch. Anyways, their first blotch will go, I have one, my male, it starts at his neck and it goes 2/3 down his body.
Wow.
And could you imagine if you had a gray, black, and a white or pink back snake? Oh,
Holy
that's
crap.
what I'm shooting for. Hypos popped out too in the clutch, but the long blotch is a line bred trait and it's not a recessive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm going to have to do another generation to get that look that I want, because it didn't happen this time. But in saying that, the black gaps where the aneutheristic comes from tend to be alternaphase, and so that blotching smaller. I'm just going to have to selectively breed it to get to where I want. Nice. I think I can do it with another generation.
Did you get any that kind of hinted towards it, where you could see some of that influence?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Nice.
So there's a little progress, and it's actually pretty reliable. I'm kind of surprised that I didn't get any this go around. My friend Matt Smith from High Mountain Reptiles, he's been gone for a long time, but he developed this line. He just had a gray band with an extra long neck blotch. It was like 3 inches, and so he bred another big. It was non-locality, but it worked. He started selectively breeding, and these snakes started doing it. And I'm starting from ground zero, but I'm on F2s now. I got the F2s on the ground, so I think F3s will produce what I'm after.
See, and I have to respect anyone who is working on a project like that, because when it comes to making combos, that's while there's probability and you're still you're rolling the dice for the odds gods, so to speak, right? But you still know what your probabilities are. You know that, okay, I've got double het. Okay, 1 in 16 should produce what I'm after here. So you know what your chances are. But whenever you're line breeding, you don't know how many years it's going to take and how many generations to get that just so. And I think it takes much more dedication on someone's part. Maybe they hit it in 2 generations and get exactly what they're after.
Yeah.
But it's definitely takes someone who, because you don't know what each generation is going to give you in terms of progress towards that end result that you're after. So it definitely takes a different individual to commit, to that type of project as opposed to, okay, I want a 3 gene morph or a 4 gene morph, because you still know, you can give yourself numbers when it comes to that one.
Yeah, for sure.
No. Cool. So your most anticipated clutch was an Alterna.
Yeah. I mean, I had some bull snakes that I was excited about. It just didn't happen this year. So let's give it another go.
I just said on the Joe's podcast when we were on it Sunday, I mean, Alterna seems to be where it's at right now. I mean, I'm in love with them, and it seems like so many others are really starting to put some effort into making, Alterna back, in my mind, to put it where it should be, really.
Well, they're the holy grail in the United States to find, like, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the one snake everybody wants to find, a gray band, and it's a hard one to find. So you got that, and then they're just naturally beautiful. You don't even need colorless, really.
Right.
You just got natural beauty with these localities, and
it's so much variability. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm loving what these snakes did for me. These clutches were just amazing.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see so many different breeders working with him to this degree now, because it's especially the different localities, because it's like, okay, I'm hoping I've got a locality you don't have, because I know you're going to have one I don't have. You know what I mean? And we can do that kind of thing. And I think that what's held gray bands back for so long is the difficulty of the babies, obviously, to get them going. But with there being so much more access to lizards now, I think they're going to take off.
I love a challenge like with colubrids. I love the gray band challenge. I do. And I have a system. A lot of people probably don't like it. Probably would stress out trying to do it. But I work with a lot of I work with 4 localities and then my non-localities. But the snake sheds. It does its first shed. Oh, it's got to eat right now. Well, not technically. They got some. They got some body fat. They got some yolk in them. They got a meal. They don't. Then people, you're new in this hobby and you start stressing. This snake hasn't ate. It's been 3 weeks, and they're like, I don't even sweat a 3-week.
Yeah.
I don't even. You know what? I don't even try to feed my gray bands until about 2 months. I let them get hungry. And then I'll offer them live. And you know what? If by waiting about 2 months, I get about 50% to go first try.
That's not bad. Not bad at all.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Do you do anything to that pinky, or it's just a live pinky thrown in there?
Just a live one. Just a small as possible, less intimidating, Try to get as small as possible. And the live action kind of triggers them because it's moving. They get, but when you start putting a pinky in there every week, and the snake won't eat, and then it gets used to it, and then I feel like even if it's a frozen thawed, I feel like that snake is annoyed by that pinky being in there, like,
yeah.
And then the less opportunities they have, when they do get that opportunity, they're more willing to go after it because they don't know when this is coming next. I just, maybe that's just me, but I feel very like I've been successful that way.
That's kind of how I got the Outer Banks that I kept that I didn't send to Clint. It was kind of, I reached a point where I was like, all right, we're going to go. I mean, I had to put it in my calendar and I had to resist the urge, and it was hard, but I did. And the 4 I kept, they weren't eating. I didn't do any scenting. I didn't do anything. And they went a solid, after hatching, solid 3.5 months before they ate. But when they all ate within like the same 2-week period, which I thought was really interesting. And now they're just slamming everything I offer them.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I only
I
have
think-
one pair of Alterna here. I have just a generic Blair's phase because I just like that look. It actually came from the Zirkles because we were at the time the university giving them snakes, and they're wonderful people. And I tried to explain to them, I don't need anything. And then every time we would give Amy and Rob anything, they would be like, here. And then, I come back with snakes. Everyone's yelling at me at the school. They're like, we sent you to get rid of snakes. Why did you come back with snakes? So, but they offered me an adult pair of Blair's phase. And I was like, sure, And I could see that once you get them to adulthood, they're great. Like, these guys eat all the time. They're easy peasy. They're in the rack right behind me, actually. But I don't have it in me to take on babies yet. So,
I mean, gray banded king snakes they're a great pet. Once you got them going, they're amazing.
They stay small. They are very docile.
Yeah.
They're beautiful. Their maintenance is low. I mean, I agree. Other than starting babies. Yeah.
Other than working with fresh hatchlings, but once you get one established, they might be one of the best snakes to keep, in my opinion. Like, just because of the pure beauty, size, I just think they're unique in the way they're structured. Big eyes.
Their head structure is very unique.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So on the black, have you gone to West Texas to look for Alterna?
I have. Well, I drove through there one night on the way to a job, but I wasn't. Of course, I wasn't successful. But that's I kind of want to do it, but I kind of don't. I don't like the idea of having to get out and wear these. Just the whole,
It's an ordeal. Yeah.
I just don't know if I'm up, and I don't want, and I don't know what I'm doing because I haven't done it, and I don't. I can find people that'll show me, give me good information, but I'm a big herper. I love herping, but I don't like competition. Like when I go road cruising and I see another car road cruising, I don't like that.
You do it all yourself.
The idea of going shining a cliff with a bunch of other people, I'm not super excited about that. Like,
yeah, that's funny.
Makes sense.
Cool. All right.
But as far as other I produced a ton of brand new Gray Basin gophers. Most of that whole market's probably mostly stuff I've attained early on or developed myself. And there's quite a bit.
Yeah. Very cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I just like the normal look of Great Basins. I think that they are a really cool looking pit.
Yeah, they're definitely underrated.
I
agree with that wholeheartedly. Cool.
So Jason, what are we going to need to do to get you to load up and come out to Colubrid Fest and
have
a big pit table?
We had a meeting over this, like me and my friends, and my friend that probably contacted you, Mike Larson, but yeah, he's really pushing on me to get out there.
I'm telling you, man.
I really want to. Even if it's not vending, I just want to come out and hang out and bullshit about snakes,
And that's what this is for. It's for that event. Yeah. Love to have you out here, Jason.
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna make an effort to do it, but I need to kind of hurry up on that because I'm sure, hotel rooms and all that stuff's gonna. I don't know. I have no idea, but it's coming up, so I kind of need to get on it if I'm gonna do it.
I'd love to see you vending too. It's when Zach said, "Hey, what do you think about having Jason come on?" Or I was like, "Oh, he's got a bunch of stuff I like." So
at least different stuff you haven't seen, maybe.
Yeah, and that's the whole point of this. That's what we talk about how excited we are for so much of it, and when it comes to the show, because it's funny, there's one hand, I'm just so excited about seeing everybody, and meeting you, face to face kind of thing. That's great. And then Saturday, I'm so excited to hear the presentations and to have that engagement. And then the show, I'm so excited to see so many different colubrids at one time. because most shows you go to, there's like 2 tables, you know what I mean? Or 2 vendors that got any that are, really that you're interested in seeing. So that's, like I said, I'd love to have you out there because I know you work with so many different species, and there's going to be a lot that I've not seen in person. So I hope you decide to, Jason. It'd be good for everybody.
I'm going to try to make it out there, but I don't think I'll bend it this year. But like, I would love to bend it.
That would be very dangerous for me.
We talked about it. We did talk about bending it, and it's a little far for me. But
yeah, it's a haul.
You gotta fly your animals out or drive it, and you're looking at I don't know, 4 days of travel maybe, there and back. But.
Very cool. Okay, so what are you excited about? I obviously have some projects you probably don't want to let the cat out of the bag on what they are, but is there anything on the colubrid space? It could be anything. Doesn't have to be Pituophis. It could be Alterna, Leonis, whatever. Is there anything right now in colubrid land that you've seen and you're just kind of like, whoa, I might need to start working on that? Or that's a question we like to ask, especially if someone's been around as long as you.
Yeah, it's funny. You go to these shows and you're like, at first you love them, and I still love them, but after a while, it's like I didn't see anything I wanted or had to have.
Yes,
and so
yeah.
But I love Facebook and Instagram because you're seeing everybody's posting neat stuff all the time. It's so cool. Yeah, there is some projects out there I've seen that are pretty new. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I remember just 2 weeks ago seeing something that's like, wow. Oh, a friend of mine has these Great Plains garters, and these things are like, I don't know what. They're green. With salt and pepper sprinkled all over them. I don't know.
I know what you're talking about. I saw those. Yes.
Whatever those things are. That blew me away.
Yeah. That's another, we'll say species or, multiple species that are highly underrepresented. In fact, Drew, who takes care of the nursery here, he's kind of working through starting his a reptile business, and he's kind of deciding what directions he's wanting to go with different projects. And I think it was just yesterday he says, I'm looking at, and I forget which type of garters he mentioned, but I said that is a segment that there's a lot of potential in, a lot. Yeah. And I said there are so many beautiful garter species out there already. And I mean, obviously that's just going to be a drop in the bucket of what can, be produced. And even just locality garters, or there's so many gorgeous right there before you get into mutations. So I agree. I think that there's a lot to be done, with them, and there's some really cool projects.
I experienced that this year. I have my living room garter snakes. That's what they are. They're the Oregon red spots. They're just typical Oregon red spotted garter snakes. There's nothing fancy about them. They are also from the Zirkles. When I gave them corn snakes, they gave me garter snakes. So that's how I got them. But anyway, and I got a litter, and I just took a really quick picture and threw it up on social media because they're cool. And I didn't think anything of it. And I'm talking like they're the only snakes I put pictures up of this year where I had at least half a dozen people. What are you going to do with those? Are you going to keep those? Are you interested in those? And they were like, I already had a trade worked up. They were less than 24 hours old. So no, garters are definitely something. And I can say keeping garter snakes, they're fantastic. My opinion on those, you have to keep them in either a vivarium or an exo, or mine are just in a classic old school 90s 40-gallon. I guess they called them Critter Keeper, the one where the screen lid is nestled into the frame.
Slides in
and
and
they've
out,
actually, slides. And they're actually, when I'm building a new building at the university that I'm going to have a nice big office, and they're going from a 40-gallon breeder to like a massive 100+ gallon vivarium. But they're like, there's a reason they're in my living room. They have personality. They are out moving all the time. They do all kinds of crazy behaviors. I mean, they're just a ton of fun. That's what they are. So
that's neat when you get an animal that's active in the
yes
time.
And they definitely know that when I come and open that lid, it's really funny. I got little heads staring up at me, and I hand feed them, which is cool. Well, my wife and I and son, we got a new dog, and he was a year old in July. He's just a little 40-pound African cattle dog mutt, and he thinks he's hot crap and runs over to those things and just barks and bites the aquarium and everything. And like the first couple times that he did that, those snakes were like, "Oh crap!" and they went into their hide box. I think it took less than a day, and they're like, "He can't do anything to us." So they antagonize the living snot out of our dog because he does this big show, and they're just like, "Okay, can you stop now?" Which then pisses the dog off even more. It's this like never-ending circle. In fact, I just heard him barking while we were recording. I guarantee you, he was over at that snake tank. So, yeah, but there's definitely a little bit more going up there than your average snake. So, if you listen, we have our kind of closing question, and I'm really curious to know your opinion on this. We ask everybody. Where do you see herpetoculture going? Do you like the direction that it's going currently as far as colubrids are concerned? Do you think it's going the right direction, wrong direction? Do you like where it is? Kind of compared to where it was, back when you made the jump into the big time with the building and everything? Like, just kind of talk through your thought process on the state of things right now.
Yeah, I like the way it's going. I feel like I kind of like the way the market's going as far as the values. There's a little more money into it, and it's like I want it to be affordable for everybody. Don't get me wrong, but it's just like you see these python boa guys making all kinds of money, and which is great. Like, and I'm not just in this for the money, but I would sure like to, make it worth my time. Like we all put a lot of time in this, so I do like the way that's going. I feel like they're being more recognized. I feel like, there's obviously things that can make you nervous and stuff too, but I feel like the market's really strong still for colubrids, and I don't have people come and find me because they know what I work with. So that's a sign that it's still, going in a good direction, I would think. But yeah, I think it's
nice.
I like the way it's going. I know bull snakes are right there with hogs, almost there with hognose, and they're super popular. And I still have tons of ideas for new stuff. Like, I've got ideas for years from now after I raise stuff up. Like, I'm that far out thinking. So I still like it is, that's what's cool. Like working with North American colubrids, a new morph can be found any day. Like, and that can change everything. Like, so I think it's going in a great direction so far. I think there's still lots of fun stuff to do.
I agree with and I think that, to your point, the colubrid market, one of the things that makes it different than like the ball python market, for example, you've got tons of morphs, and like you were just talking about bull snakes, and there's still so much that can be done with the mutations. But what's great too is that's just one species out of how many, when it comes to colubrids. So it's instead of everyone being just into bull snakes, people can still have a few, enjoy the new morphs, but it doesn't get so saturated because you know what else I like? This species over here too. And so there's just so much room in the colubrid market, to continue to expand. So it's instead of just going up, now you can go sideways. You can go forward, you can go back, you can go left, you can go right. You know what I mean? To so much more, and still it continues to grow.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the hognose. I mean, and this is color morphs, but look how many color morphs and bull snakes and these gopher snakes are the same way. Like there's a ton of them too. And it's just, I just feel like there's tons of creativity and stuff to still create. And then you got that, like you said, that array of species, like hundreds. Like I want to dabble in these Asian rat snakes, and I just don't.
We'll talk.
I don't.
I want more pits.
Yeah, but I look at all those Asian rat snakes, and I'm like, look at all these colors, and there's a million of them, different kinds, and like I just can't even get to that phase yet. So,
well, and I'll ask too, since we just kind of announced it earlier, with being somebody who's into bulls and so many different mutations, what do you think about RGI starting to turn some of their attention over to the colubrid market now?
I'm freaking excited for that.
Isn't that awesome?
Like, especially like some of like I was talking about that rusty genetic, like I don't even know what the heck to label that is,
Yep.
It's undescribed morph, like really. But like, I outcrossed it into another morph this year, and they're 100% unrelated, and every one of these babies look like a hypo. I don't know what's going on. Like,
wow.
There's still mysteries. We don't know all about genetics. We don't know all the morphs.
Oh, no,
there's new stuff that hasn't been discovered or described, so that's even more stuff to build off of. Yeah, I probably got sidetracked a little bit there.
That's all right. That's what we do.
I just get excited.
This is the place to get excited.
All righty. Well, this was wonderful. We're coming right up on 2 hours. If we'll definitely have you on again if you want to come on. We would love to. We would love to do that.
I'd love to.
Yeah, we're awesome. So if people want to reach out to you, or if you want, or where do people go to see the stuff? So is there a Facebook, Instagram site?
Yeah, I have Facebook and Instagram. I do have some other ones, but I really don't. I mostly like if you just for strictly viewing pleasure, like my Instagram is probably the best. Like everything neat I've ever produced is up on there, and I don't know how many pictures are on there, like 700, 800.
Oh.
And the deeper you go, the neater the stuff is. But it's Envy Reptiles. It's Envy_Reptiles, and then just on Facebook, it's Envy Reptiles. So ENV.
Beautiful.
Pretty easy to find.
All right, go. If you're a Pituophis addict, you probably already know Jason. He's probably one of your dealers. But if you're just hearing this for the first time, by all means, go there. Like I said, pits have a special place in my heart. And I definitely have gone there and just kind of drooled and looked at the pictures. And it's just kind of phenomenal. So you should be proud of what you've done, sir. It's pretty freaking awesome.
Absolutely.
So,
thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Okay. So with that, if people want to get a hold of me, Dr. Crawdad on Instagram, Zach Loafman on Facebook. I am going to be putting up very soon, well, not very soon, within the month, a graduate assistantship that involves the following things. Me working with Dr. Bogan at the Orient Center for Indigo Snake Conservation in Central Florida And the student will be working on some element of captive propagation of eastern indigo snakes. I cannot think of a cooler master's degree. And I just simply have to get Bogan on the phone again and kind of work out the details. But the position will be starting in January. So I got to get this ad up quick. But if you just recently got your 4-year degree and you think, I'd like to work with snakes, and maybe Dr. Zach, by all means, be looking for that. And I will totally announce it. I'm actually going to share the position on our Facebook page. And so that's me in a nutshell. And then you can obviously, all things Colubrid Fest, go to I think it's called the official Colubrid Fest page or something like that.
Yeah, on Facebook.
Yeah, hit that up. We didn't give much of an update on this episode because we worked our asses off last week and it's Tuesday. But by all means, be hitting that up because that's where we're going to be putting the details and the information for new things on that front. And then, Senior Bartley, where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Clint Bartley, or the Metazotics Facebook page. That's where we keep most of our updates happening. We will have, also on Instagram, Metazotics LLC. Please check us out at metazotics.com. That's where you can see everything that is available. And as always, for our listeners, if you do pick anything up online, please use coupon code CC Radio to save yourself 5%.
There you go. So whatever day, whatever time it is, morning, afternoon, evening, or night, hope you have a good one. Later.